Welcome back to the Blended Online Learning Design series. In this video, we will be looking at how to optimize online collaborations. In order to do that, Mike and I will be presenting two important strategies for you to consider in order to get the most out of collaborative activities and projects with your students. The first step or strategy is to make your goals and expectations for these collaborative activities as clear as possible. And then the next step is to pick the right tool or combination of tools to support those collaborative activities and projects. First things first, it's important for you, the teacher, to get clear on your goals. One of the most important goals in my mind is to make the learning as student-centered as possible. Designing lessons that emphasize collaboration allows you to break from being a sage on the stage and serve more as a guide by the side as students work together on any number of collaborative activities, from mind mapping to brainstorming, planning a project, drafting collaborative documents, working on projects with an authentic audience, such as publishing a book or producing a podcast, or perhaps a live performance or presentation. Keep in mind that it's possible for students to collaborate on quick, short-term activities as well as longer-range, longer-term projects, and that the collaborative work they do together can happen both asynchronously on their own time outside of live class time. It's also possible for them to collaborate in the live virtual class sessions together. You may give them breakout time for them to practice and to continue their collaborative work or to work with a certain tool, or you may even do a little bit of both, where they're starting the project for homework and then continuing to work in class. It's really up to you and what your goals and ideas are. And of course, with all these different variables and approaches at play, it's important for you to pause and to consider your options and then decide how best to go about achieving the goals you have in mind for student collaborations. Once you're clear on your goals, then it's time to think about how to share those goals and expectations with your students. Providing crystal clear instructions and examples for your students makes a huge difference. And there are really so many different ways that you might potentially go about this. So let's look at one possible way that you might frame expectations for your students. In this example, we have perhaps an activity that could be short-term or long-term, maybe having students work on a skit or a dramatic presentation together. And for this, I recommend using a collaborative slide deck to help clarify expectations for students, as well as to provide a framework and guidelines for the collaborative activity that they will be doing with their partner or partners. Note that this particular example is available in quick links for you to make a copy of and then adapt for your own purposes. In this example, you might be prompting students to do a skit or a dramatic interpretation of some sort, and notice that there's instructions in this template for teachers and then instructions for students as well. And here that you're giving them 3 steps to follow using their collaborative time, letting them know what will happen when you pull them out of breakout rooms and back into a whole group activity. You're giving them a template slide to customize and use for their group. And then here's an example of what it might look like if Mike and I were partners in your class and had customized the slide for our skit where we're in a cafe, perhaps. Let's look at a slightly different example that would be more useful for a more involved, longer-term project. In this case, you are really setting a tone for the big picture of the project. You're letting students know that the point of the project is not only to dive deeper into the topic at hand, whether it's science or social studies or language, but that this is really an opportunity for them to practice communicating and collaborating well with their teammates. And you're also providing them with some ideas of how they can go about ensuring the success of their project and ensuring that it's a successful experience for the team. Keep in mind that I would also recommend using a rubric, since that will clarify for students how you will be evaluating them both on the end result of their project as well as on the collaborative teamwork journey involved. And that a rubric can also be an incredibly useful tool for students to self-evaluate as well as to weigh in on how their teammates are doing, both midway through the project as well as at the end of the project. So these examples are really intended to just get you thinking about the different possibilities of how you might go about clarifying your goals and clarifying your expectations for students. And of course, there's so many other ways you could go about this. So be sure to check quick links for more resources related to clarifying goals and expectations for online collaborations.
Now that we've discussed the importance of clarifying goals and setting expectations for student collaboration, both big and small, we're going to take a look at some of the popular collaborative platforms to help get you started. Now, before we do that, I'd like to direct your attention to the string of arrows in the middle of the screen. You've seen arrows that look like this in previous videos, but we tend to use them as headers when discussing lists of asynchronous self-paced approaches and synchronous real-time ones. But the reality is that when you do a collaborative project in a blended or online environment, a single approach just won't suffice. It will need to be an endless flow of synchronous and asynchronous moments to achieve the outcome you're looking for. It could start either way. Perhaps you post project or assignment instructions on a Google Classroom wall and expect your students to read it ahead of time and come to class equipped with questions. Or maybe you explain it to them live in real time in a virtual meeting. It'll continue in breakout rooms as the students organize themselves and divide up the responsibilities, or on a discussion board where they post rough work and ask for comments and feedback. It'll then continue on in future virtual meetings, both with the teacher and without, and with students working on the responsibilities on their own or with their peers. This is all for the purpose of accomplishing the activity deliverable and having a good, healthy, collaborative outcome. The key to these projects is to take advantage of both realities and organize them in such a way that whether alone or with their peers, students are always in a position to contribute to the larger project effort. Now let's get back to the fun part, which is the platforms. The links below will take you to lists of tools for collaboration. And if any of them that we discuss are of interest, or if you're looking for something else, check the lists, do a quick Google search to see if there's something out there that interests you, or contact ESD and we'll see if we can find a solution that fits your class. Let's begin with two platforms I use when teaching web design online. The one on the left, Aggie.io, is a web-based image creation and editing platform that allows multiple people to work on the same canvas. Now, I've had students use it for the purpose of creating website graphics, but I could see it being used equally well with an art teacher that wants to do some sort of digital art project, or as a supporting tool for any kind of assignment that has some artistic element, regardless of what subject it's for. The screenshot on the right is from jsitor.com, and that's what you call a coding playground, which is a web page where you can write different languages, different coding languages, for the purpose of creating some sort of web page or web application. On this particular platform, what sets it apart from some other ones is that you can invite multiple people to contribute to the same application or web page. So to give you an idea of how I might use this for either a quick class activity or a larger class project, I might introduce a new coding concept in my class. Let's say loops, something that repeat until a condition is met. And then I will take the students, break them up into different groups in the breakout rooms, and they're required to demonstrate this concept by writing a small application. The students in the breakout rooms will organize themselves, get themselves set up on the JSTOR platform, and then go to work as a team attempting to solve this challenge. I'll go from room to room, checking in on them and seeing how they're doing the same way I would if I walked around my class. And then when the class is over or nearly over, I'll bring everybody back from their breakout rooms and I'll have each group demonstrate their solution to the challenge. And this would be a one-class activity, but nothing says you couldn't scale this into something that is far larger, but equally collaborative. Other good collaborative tools includes Perusall, a platform for students to analyze and annotate text as a group. You might ask them to explain passages, analyze writing styles, react to parts of the text, or simply ask questions of things they don't understand to get support from their peers. Storium is another collaborative writing tool that merges writing a story as a group with the card-playing style of popular role-playing games. In this case, students will hold a hand of cards and play them to serve as writing prompts for each other. For the math teachers out there, Desmos is a popular platform where teachers can watch students solve math problems together in real time. Lastly, Tools like Jamboard are less about topic and more about organization. If students are going to work together and mix real-time and self-paced efforts, they should learn how to use tools like Jamboard or Miro to organize themselves as a team and keep track of team goals, team outcomes, and of course their personal responsibility to the deliverable. Now, just a reminder that if any of these platforms interest you, clicking the image on the screen will link you directly to them. Two of the more popular collaborative media platforms are Book Creator and Soundtrap, and you can probably guess what they do just by their names. Book Creator allows you to create, among other things, interactive stories, poetry, research journals, and science reports, while Soundtrap is a multi-user sound editor, great for any recording project like recording music, creating a podcast, or conducting an interview. Now, this would be a good place to point out that there's no rule that says you have to use platforms that you're unfamiliar with. You can easily use Google Docs to create a collaborative story, and there are many audio recorders that are compatible with the Google Suite that we all use. If you'd like to encourage collaborative work, but you aren't entirely comfortable navigating new educational technology platforms, you can always go this route and get similar outcomes. What separates the two possibilities is that these newer platforms, so Book Creator for the written word and Soundtrap for an audio production, are designed with these outcomes in mind. And as such, they're more intuitive for the students to use, and that leads to a more rewarding experience for your students in creating the deliverable you're looking for. Let's touch on something we looked at in the previous slide, in that you can often use different platforms to achieve the same outcome. Imagine you asked your students to create a narrated presentation with an animated backdrop and their faces superimposed on top of it. Now, your students could easily use Book Creator for the background, and then Loom or Screencastify to superimpose their faces. However, both you and your students may be new to blended and online learning this year, and you may not want to start off your year by doing a deep dive into educational technology platforms that you may not be familiar with. So there are multiple ways to come to the same outcome, and in this case, you could ask your students to create the background in Google Slides, and then use that in a shared meeting on Zoom that they record, and you end up with the exact same deliverable. So are there advantages to using Book Creator and Screencastify and Loom? Of course there are. They're a bit more sophisticated, the user interface is a bit more intuitive, and the kids may find the whole process just a little bit cooler. But you have to balance that against your comfort level with those platforms and the importance of achieving the outcome that you're really looking for. Lastly, if you have any collaborative activities that you did in your regular brick and mortar classroom that you think might translate well to the online environment, please reach out to ESD to share them, as we'd like to publish them to the BOLD website and share them with the LBPSB community at large. On behalf of Lori and myself, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and we'll see you in the next one.